2015 at 1 o'clock Eastern Time, and this is Higher Ed Special Edition. I'm your host today, Mallory Wood, Director of Marketing at mStoner. Last month, higher ed web professionals taught graphic design, code, content strategy, UX and UI development, accessibility, information architecture, oh my gosh, this list is so long, instructional design, online marketing, and all other interactive technology in State College, Pennsylvania for the Penn State Web Conference. I am pretty sure there is nothing that we didn't talk about after reading through that list. If you missed out on the conference, do not worry. I am joined today by both speakers and committee members from the conference to give a quick recap. And full disclosure, I am also a committee member, so I'm only slightly biased to the awesomeness of this conference. But first, let's tell you a little bit about Higher Ed Special Edition. We are part of the Higher Ed Live Network, offering viewers direct access to the best and brightest minds in education. Live webcasts allow viewers to share knowledge and participate in discussions around the most important issues in the industry. All episodes of Higher Ed Special Edition are free and accessible in the video archives on higheredlive.com and in podcast format on iTunes, as are all of the episodes in our many other channels, which you should definitely check out. Higher Ed Live is produced by mStoner, a marketing communications firm that works with education institutions on branding, strategy, web design, and more. 2 never-before-released chapters from our books, Social Works and Follow the Leader, are now available for download as audio chapters. I am actually super excited about that. They're really cool, and I'm going to tweet out a link so you can download those chapters for free and learn more about our helpful resources. I have been talking for far too long because I am not the star of today's shows, but I would love to introduce those folks to you. So, Karen, why don't you start us off with some introductions?
Sure. My name is Karen Hackett. I'm a Senior Marketing Associate in University Marketing here at Penn State, and I serve on the leadership team for the web conference. And I'm involved in the overall programming committee as well as some of the marketing and communications activities.
Hi, I'm Nikki Massaro-Kaufman. I'm a multimedia specialist with Penn State's World Campus Learning Design Unit. So I work in the web, but specifically in the realm of educational technology.
Hi there, I'm Matt Mooney. Did I kick over? I did. Okay, I'm Matt Mooney. I'm the Director of Instructional Design for the Smeal College of Business here at Penn State, and was a committee member for the web conference and was formerly a professor of web and interactive media, so I've been in this world for very, very long.
Audrey?
Hi, I'm Audrey Romano. I'm the head of design at the Teaching and Learning with Technology unit and studio at Penn State. I've been on the web committee for this conference for a few years now, and it's just getting better and better.
And I am Jen Momini, and I am a communications strategy specialist in information technology services at Penn State. I am also one of the members of the leadership team of the committee, and I'm also the chair of the marketing committee that is social media and marketing and content and web. So it's kind of an amalgamation of all of the above.
Awesome. So thank you all so much for joining me today. I'm really looking forward to this conversation. And for those of you watching along, do not hesitate to ask questions using the hashtag HigherEdLive. I will definitely do my best to watch the stream and direct those questions to our guests as they come in. For now, though, let's get started with a few questions that I've put together. And Karen, I'm going to direct this first question to you since you are one of the fearless leaders of the conference. Tell me a little bit about the history of the Penn State Web Conference and how it's changed over the years.
Well, it's changed dramatically. It's pretty amazing how it started. It was an internal conference only. It started, I think it was 1998 was its starting year. And it probably serviced maybe 100 people. Like, it was capped off with registration. There weren't events. There weren't activities, networking. It was just, you know, these tracks, and it was highly technical at the time, and it was very Penn State focused on what was going on at Penn State. But as time goes on, you know how much the web has evolved in what we do. It's a platform for so many things that we do, from content strategy to marketing and recruitment. So the whole landscape has changed, and over the years we've tried to adopt that. It's largely, we're trying to blend it between industry and higher ed, and that's what kind of sets us apart, is that we have private industries represented on the committee and also in our attendee list. But it's pretty amazing to see what it started out as, is like sort of like a seminar almost, and now it's this huge conference that has some national pull and presence to it.
Mm-hmm. And you know, I've been in a very fortunate position to watch this conference kind of evolve and then get involved with it, and I think I've seen some really awesome changes in regards to the people attending. Yes. And how you know, the audience has really grown from beyond just Penn State to higher ed in general, and then beyond higher ed. Yeah. And you know, because the audience is much more diverse at this point, you know, what's the goal? Like, why do we want to get all these people in the same room? Why is that important?
Well, I think it's important in terms of how people, not only how they're working, but how they need to work. None of us can really work in isolation anymore. It doesn't happen. The work doesn't get done, and it doesn't get done well. Mm. But what we're trying to achieve by growing that community and changing the conference in that direction is that a person who is responsible for content, or even content and marketing, should be able to work with a programmer or a developer to get the work done in the right way. So.
Absolutely. So let's move into talking about some of the trends at the conference. And Jen, I'm actually going to pop this one over to you. Would you mind kind of giving us a little rundown of what the theme was for this conference?
Absolutely. So the theme this year was designing the future. And we really tried to look at that and think about that as broadly as possible, because like Karen said, design really enters into everything that we do, anything that's represented on the web, and it goes the whole way down from, you know, actually the building blocks and the code that make these designs possible, or that make them interactive, or that make them display, and all the way then up to the marketing and how these designs are interacting with users, how it's affecting them emotionally and in so many other ways. So the reason we kind of went with Design the Future is because something that we're really committed to is how, obviously, design on the web, but designing the idea of the web. This is something that is evolving so quickly, and we're really interested in how it evolves. And just like it's evolving in terms of bringing many more people into the community, what else can we do with it? That's kind of the question that we wanted to ask this year, in terms of how are we changing literally the future of this, but then also much broader, and how the changing of the web reaches out to really change our social dynamics, our world.
Mm-hmm. That's so interesting. Nikki, did you see or attend any sessions that really stuck out to you around this idea of designing the future?
Actually,
hey, Nikki, I'm not sure that we can hear you because you're on mute. I'm sure you're saying super smart things.
all right. Well, I really feel that one of the sessions, and I might be unique in this, that I took away from it. You can hear me now, right?
You're good.
Okay, I'm good. So, so one of my favorite sessions was by Connie Milamed. It was Visual Explanations, the Future in Visual Communication. And what I really liked about that is not the sense of design as an aesthetic, and I love the way Jen explained the theme for design, because design is a very mindful, purposeful thing that we do in our work. There's a lot of thought that goes into how we set things up, and so what I valued from Connie's presentation was the ability to communicate to stakeholders the thought process behind even things that seem very aesthetic, visuals. And that sense of design went throughout, and especially in I'm interested in the accessibility and usability angles, and thinking of designing for audiences and for their cognitive needs, as well as physical needs for assistive technology and whatnot.
Awesome. Um, Matt, what about you? You know, maybe that wasn't the session you attended, but what was a session that really stuck out? I think you're on mute as well, Matt.
There we go. Now I'm better. Sorry.
Perfect.
I think it was actually a lot more of a theme for me. I was the session chair for the project management leadership stuff, and I think the big theme that really stuck out was this idea that we have evolved so quickly, so dramatically over the past few years. You know, when you think about a decade ago to now, what we've done and what we can do, that so much of the larger picture has been a reaction to new possibilities and new user needs and new opportunities, that we've kind of created semi-organized chaos in having a way to kind of pull all of this back together and have a plan for where we're going to go, which is why this designing the future is so important, because I think right now the web industry in general is at a very critical point where we keep doing more, but we're having a hard time coordinating everything and making sure it works, and we're trying to be really efficient with things. And every new rev of technology, of tools, and the users coming in are so much more sophisticated. The future is so unwritten that it's really quite a spectacular time. So that theme of kind of leadership and project management and planning ahead was really important to me. I really got a lot out of those.
Awesome. Audrey, do you have anything to add to that?
I, coming from a web design background, actually chose to do a much more diverse in terms of attending sessions this year, but generally from the design and development sessions, I thought I saw a lot of UX focused content. There's so much in the web these days in terms of design and development. There's so much more focus going on with improving UX, improving usability, improving accessibility, especially here within higher ed. Those are the big themes on what I see on that front in terms of really making a good experience for our users and providing the right context for the content that's out there.
Awesome. And Karen, what about you?
I didn't go to any sessions this year because I was running around managing keynote.
Well, we'll talk about the keynotes in a minute because they were pretty awesome. So.
Yeah, I mean, that's the one thing, a takeaway that you need to make sure that you get to at least a few sessions each day. I mean, you're supposed to have the conference experience too. So
For
a
sure.
lot of the people on the leadership team didn't even get to sessions because there were other things to manage. So
Yeah, I felt like, you know, the conversations, at least at the sessions I attended, were less tool specific, and definitely, as Audrey, as you pointed out, you know, more about the entire user experience and not just within one particular tool, but how they are all working together. Everything's being connected to each other, and that was a theme that I remember walking away from the conference last year saying to myself, you know, I'm going to guess that that's going to come out at next year's conference, because I felt like last year we were like on the tipping point of that, and this year it was all about being connected, all about the planning and the process, as Matt mentioned, behind how things actually happen and the importance of that. Jennifer, have we left anything out? What else happened?
I think that you're spot on, that a lot of it was about the larger processes and kind of the things that are driving some of these, and also about change. I went to one session that was about, I did make it to a few sessions, just a few, but I went to one that was about kind of what ways to assess change and find what the drivers are and the blockers are, and it was really interesting to see people talking about it, because I think it's something that we're all encountering. And we have been with the whole advent of the web. It's constantly changing, but I think we're starting to get much more interested in how it's changing and how we can not control that change, but organize that change and facilitate that change in much more kind of intentional ways. So that was something that I definitely took away from this year, is that that's a common theme across industries and people.
yeah, I would agree with that. I think it's something that no matter what your discipline is or how technical or non-technical you are, we crave good leadership and change management, and you know, sometimes we just don't have it in our respective workspaces. Climate is a big one. And I kind of picked up on that this year, that people wanted to talk about that and how important it is for getting good work done.
Mm-hmm. Matt, anything else to add?
I think the leadership portion is key. The more we can almost cultivate leaders within ourselves and help each other grow, I think is imperative to where we're going to go in higher ed, but also in industry. It's not about just chasing a dollar. It's about doing great things purposefully and repeatedly. And so that leadership piece becomes really critical to this whole mission of the web.
And Nikki, any last words before we move on?
I would underscore leadership. I definitely saw that. Of course, I've gone to Karlin Boroshenko's presentation on playing politics twice now. Mm-hmm. And even though I've seen it twice, it never disappoints. But that's a key point. If you're in order to get things done, we need to have leadership, and we need to be able to play together.
So let's keep talking about the content of the conference, but let's focus in on those keynotes, because we had some pretty big names this year. For those of you who didn't attend, this year's keynotes included Samantha Warren, Tim Gunn, Brad Frost, and Andy Cohen. Karen, I'm going to toss this over to you first, because I heard at the conference some people saying, hey, how do people go about selecting keynotes for a conference like this? Where does the short list come from? Do you throw a dart at a dartboard and just hope for the best, or do we close our eyes and type some stuff into Google, see what comes up? So Karen, walk us through that process a little bit, and then Jen, why don't you jump in and give us some takeaways?
It was definitely a very deliberate process. We don't randomly do this stuff. Once we have the theme, we were thinking big this year. We thought, maybe we were too big. I don't know. It was very ambitious, but it seemed to all pan out in the end. But in terms of Samantha and Brad, they fit so nicely content-wise, given respectively what they do. Tim and Andy, we treated more as our inspirational speakers in terms of, okay, no, they really don't have much to do with web design or any kind of web development, but there's a larger picture and message there that they can tie into, especially with Tim having 29 years in higher ed at Parsons, and he could speak to that crowd and connect on that level. With Andy, we were thinking we wanted to hear how he designed his future. So it was, again, a bigger scope, bigger picture, where he basically drove his own career and did it, made decisions at very good times. And in terms of his engagement with his audience and the importance of building his brand, we thought it was a good fit there. We had the option to ask one or the other, and we thought, well, let's ask for both of them and see what happens. And it just sort of, fell into place from there. So yeah, we're very planful about it, very deliberate.
In terms of some of the takeaways, I can definitely share some of my perspective on that, and then we can get the other ones too. But with Samantha, so Samantha is the creator of style tiles, and her presentation had to do a lot with change, which is one of the subjects we identified earlier, and how key that is to designing the future. But she walked us through, and actually kind of related to the topic of politics, when you go in with a design into a boardroom, why doesn't it work? And you get the buy-in, you get involvement along the way, but then nothing actually ends up happening. So she kind of addressed breaking that down into these style tiles and kind of getting it to be participatory the whole way through, and breaking it down into smaller elements, which is something that Brad talked about. But then she also talked about then how that it really comes down to the people and how important the people are in that process of really making changes and making sustained changes and getting buy-in and understanding the needs at all different levels. So she talked about design in that way. And then for me, one of the biggest takeaways of Tim Gunn's presentation had to do with education and just what a committed educator he was. And I think that really resonated for a lot of people in the audience, and seeing how, especially when it comes to thinking forward, and future thinking and designing the future, you have to be able and willing to ruffle some feathers sometimes. And he definitely did that in his tenure at Parsons, where he wanted to change the way the curriculum was. He really wanted to design a new way of doing things. And it took a lot of hard work, and it took a few fall downs, but he did it because he was committed to the students. And I thought that was really powerful. He also talked a lot about the importance of collaboration in design and gave a Project Runway example of two teams that were working, and one team was very collaborative and they had this awesome result, and the other team was just talking over each other and they did not have an awesome result. And I think that just underscores what a lot of the conference was about. For Brad Frost, he is best known for probably atomic design, and again, this idea of breaking it down into elements. And I really valued his talk because it gave so many concrete examples and really showed what the work that he was doing looked like and how you can maybe apply these things while remaining very funny and very high level. It definitely became a little bit more graspable. That's not even a word, but you know what I mean. It was a little bit more, you were able to really say, oh, that's cool, I can see how I can apply this, or oh, I'm working on this project, I know how this relates. So, and then with Andy Cohen's, it was, yeah, really about how, as someone that was working in an emerging field of, well, television had obviously been around for a while, but really reality television and different kinds of television and live streaming on the internet, how he seized these opportunities as they came, and that's an important part of designing the future, is embracing it as it comes and just jumping in and giving it a try and not really expecting anything from it at first, but just being willing to play with it. So I know I just talked a lot, but those are kind of my key takeaways, I think.
I love it. I love it. You know, I have to say my personal favorite keynote was Tim Gunn's, and not just because I'm a fan of Project Runway, but I felt like I wasn't sure where he was going to go with his keynote, and I think that there were plenty of other people in the room who would have said the same thing. You know, what is Tim Gunn going to say here to a bunch of web people? And during the course of his session, I tweeted out some of these lessons that he was sharing with us that were wildly relevant to what we do as web professionals. Yet he told us these stories. I mean, his keynote was a story with lessons in it. It was what we as web marketing pros try to do on our websites, right? Tell stories that serve points and get people to learn something. And that's what his keynote was about. But my favorite one was when he said, don't use 400 pages for a story that can be told in a few paragraphs. And I was like, if there was ever a key takeaway for a bunch of people who work on a web, like, be concise, right? Like, communicate concisely. Don't use 400 pages when you can use a couple of paragraphs and make your point. And I just love that. And that's something, as I babble on here, need to remember communication needs to be concise. Matt, I'm going to flip it over to you. Why don't you share some of your top keynote takeaways?
Well, I think the whole theme of change was amazing. And I've seen Samantha and Brad lots of times. I love all the things they do. The real surprises for me, the biggest one was Tim Gunn. I don't follow Project Runway, surprise, but I don't. And I've actually now bought his book, The Natty Professor, because I didn't know about his long academic history. And so to hear his story was really quite amazing for me. Having spent a long time as a professor and then made the transition to administration, I did that very purposefully for really specific reasons about helping improve learning in higher ed and those kinds of things. I wanted to get involved at that level. And to hear him have that talk and really focus on the change in improving things for the students and the academic battles and the political capital that have to be spent, it was inspiring for me, because I think we need 5,000 Tim Gunns in higher ed to do these kinds of things. And so for me, that was the biggest takeaway, was just that, yep, this can be done, and it often just takes one person to take the battle on and get beat up a little bit, but really keep pushing for the right things. So his was the one that I absolutely loved. And Andy taking on the baby wipe jelly bean was the other great takeaway of the whole thing. Never play, what was that, Jelly Bean Bamboozled or whatever that is, don't ever play that.
Yeah, so if you're watching and you weren't at the conference, there were a couple pranksters on the committee who decided it would be really fun to buy this game called Jelly Bean Bamboozle. It's from Jelly Belly, and it basically you spin, and you wind up with either a really great tasting jelly bean or a really terrible tasting jelly bean. And which one did Andy Cohen wind up getting?
He got the baby wipe.
Oh, God. I had to eat skunk, so I guess I don't feel that bad for him. But that was pretty funny. I don't know if there's ever been in the history of keynotes, somebody eating a baby wipe.
Except for him, because Patty absolutely forbid it. She was like, no. So his handler did too.
Oh my gosh.
Jonathan, who was lovely as well. But it was so funny because Samantha got it from Tom, and then she did it to Brad Frost, and he got skunk as well. They both got skunk. So all the keynotes seem to have been, initiated.
Sure.
It's a good way to bond.
I like it. There's a lot of fun that happens at conferences, and we'll get to networking next, but it's those special moments that if you're not there in person, you're going to miss out. You can watch the live stream, but those are those really great moments if you're not in the room. So sorry. But to kind of wheel us back in here, Matt, one of the things that you mentioned about Tim Gunn's talk that also resonated with me was the change and the leadership that he brought. And I loved when he talked about how he had to collaborate with others in order to realize that change. And he said, 1 + 1 can equal 100. And and I loved that. I think I tweeted that one too. Audrey, let's flip this over to you and see what your key takeaways were.
Well, I think, when we were talking about what were the big themes from the conference overall, and that being leadership and now I forget, user experience, I think those were also echoed with the keynotes, regardless of whether they specifically are web professionals or not. I think what we're hearing is that whether whatever kind of adversity you're facing, whether it's you in a web team versus or working along with a larger organization to try to change the pattern, improve the pattern to be better for the user, or you're working in an administrator like Tim Gunn was, that's the kind of stuff we face. And I think regardless of what their main career was actually in, that was still common among all of them. And I actually found it very refreshing, honestly, because I go to a lot of tech conferences, from South by Southwest Interactive to to something like this, to High Ed Web and whatnot. And I feel like there's you tend to get overloaded sometimes, and it's nice to have these really great personalities as well as great keynotes who can tell these stories to kind of bring some realism to it, not just hand over a bunch of tools for you to be like, okay, I got to learn this so that I can accomplish this thing, but really personalize it and bring you into their story as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, I really enjoyed that too. Hearing some of the inspiration, or gaining inspiration from someone like Tim Gunn or Andy Cohen. It wasn't hard after listening to their story. They framed it in a way that made it relevant to anybody who was sitting in the room, whether you were a designer or a tech person or project manager. I think no matter what, you could pull something from those. Nikki, why don't we wrap up the keynote chat with your takeaways?
I think that personally I can relate so much to Andy Cohen in the idea of sort of driving your own career, and some of it is defined by the opportunities that you have said no to, but also then the opportunities you make for yourself. And I think in higher ed we're fortunate enough to sort of have that leeway to define our own jobs, really. And if you see a need to take some of your extra time and your other duties as assigned and dedicate that to a passion, and then articulate it to your leadership to say, look, we have a need for this, and I think I can serve my institution better by doing this thing. And I've done that. My title has changed over the years, almost with every web conference. And part of that is because I have been able to redefine myself, and I think we all can do that.
Awesome. All right, so let's switch gears and just talk about other parts about the conference. You know, yes, we sign up and go to a conference to attend the sessions, to get, you know, key pieces of information that we can go home and take and change what we're doing and learn and make what we're doing better. But conferences are also great for the networking. They're great for the events. They're great to see people that you may have connected with in the past. And for me, I honestly believe that the Penn State Conference has, you know, one of the most vibrant, you know, evening events. They're always so much fun. And I always feel like I just have these really awesome conversations. People are going to the events looking to talk about the sessions that they heard, you know, attended that day and their key takeaways and really bring those conversations, you know, to the bar and chat about stuff over beer. And sometimes that's where you learn the most. So, Karen, let me throw this over to you. Why don't you give us a rundown of what events took place this year? And then, Audrey, if you want to jump in and talk about some of your favorite moments, that'd be awesome.
I have to give credit to our logistics committee for putting together 2 fabulous post-conference events. It was just wonderful work that they did. The one that we did a Taste of Pennsylvania and a baseball game at the Spike Stadium, our local baseball team. And all of a sudden, I can't talk. I'm like, so that was fun. That was like, you know, we had a section of the stadium where we were able to just, you know, watch the game and all sit together and have a good time. And then the second night, we did an Elements of State College, which we're going to start doing year after year. This year, it was at a venue called Bar Blue with, you know, catered food. It was wonderful. It was just fun. And the energy in the room for me is just so inspiring. Everyone's talking to each other. There's a high level of civility. No one takes himself too seriously, and you just build new relationships and friendships. Just the events to us are very important for that networking aspect, like you mentioned.
Yeah, I would have to say that the baseball game was great. It got us outside, and those stadiums are always super impressive. I mean, last year it was the football stadium. Even though I went to Penn State and have worked here for 10 years, I've never been in the stadium until that moment. So it was kind of like, all right, this is what I've been missing. I know it's terrible and shocking. I'm sorry. I'm a nerd. We work ultimately
do sports.
So anyway, but I thought, I mean, again, actually, given that I've been here forever, I had never gone in, and I really loved that. It was kind of like both, you know, intimate and yet still very lively. I mean, I talked to vendors and co-presenters and even people within Penn State who I never really get to converse with, and I just felt like it was really enjoyable. I really liked that one.
Cool. And Jen, what do you think about the events, and what were some of your favorite moments?
I had a fantastic time at the ball game. I think after being inside, for those of you who did not attend the conference, the Penn Stater is notorious for being like frigid. You know, this year our swag was a blanket because you actually need to use it in that building. But so it was really lovely to be outside in the sunshine and just relaxing and talking over a beer. And on Sunday night we actually have like a welcome event and some drinks, and I think that strangely enough that's one of my favorites because you're seeing people for the first time. You maybe haven't seen them in a year, and you're getting together and you're like, oh my gosh, hi, how you been? And then also meeting new people. And I really love meeting people who I haven't met before, or who they have come to the conference by themselves, or this is the first time at the conference, because I think that often takes, whenever I go to a conference by myself, like it takes, you know, the extra push of bravery to go downstairs on the first night and have a beer and be like by yourself and have to make conversation. And so I really love getting to meet people who have taken that step, and there's so many in this community at the web conference. I think that it's a really special community, and everyone is so welcoming, and I just feel grateful to be a part of it. So it's always a good time. And like Karen said, people really do want to talk about the sessions, and actually, Mallory, maybe you said that, but it's about the work and about what you're doing and about interesting things, and it's pretty great.
Yeah, the first night, the Sunday, because it kind of grounds you, right? It's like no matter where you've traveled in from or what day what time you've gotten there, like that opening reception is like, all right, here we are with a bunch of people who want to nerd out for the next 3 days about the web, and we're all in one room together, and here we go. Like there's so much energy in that room, and I agree. For a first timer, I think the reception is really nice because it's giving you that opportunity to interact with committee members and speakers who may have been attending this conference for 2, 3, 4, 5 years. And I think that's just a really nice way to get acquainted with the conference quickly, meet people, and have a drink and just kick back and get ready to learn for the next 3 days. So I am with you, Jen. The Sunday night's always my favorite reception as well. Nikki, what about you?
I'm going to piggyback on the Sunday night, and I think part of the reason it's so useful for first-timers and for experienced people is we all have an idea of, we look at the schedule and think, oh, I'm going to see this or I'm going to see that. But it's nice to talk to people who are speaking and hear their elevator pitch. I usually end up throwing what I planned on seeing completely out the window after talking to people. So it's a good opportunity, and I absolutely, absolutely, absolutely love Bar Blue as well. It's such a strong, it's a great community, and we get to see each other once a year. And in what other community could you be in a giant group hug swaying to Piano Man? I mean, you just feel like this is it. This is my family.
Awesome. Matt, what do you have to add?
Well, I think the two for me, one, it was great at the ballpark. I ended up sitting with a young woman from Iowa and a guy from Chicago discussing the importance of proper pierogi making and cheesesteak development. It was her first time to ever have a pierogi, so it was really kind of funny. But then also to kind of sum up like the experience of web conference, my wife came with me to Bar Blue on the last night. And so, I would be talking about this conference through the year of going to the planning meetings and talking through these things. And when we left, my wife is about as far from techie as you can be. I love her to death, but she's not techie. She just doesn't do that stuff. And she walked out of there and she said, those are some of the most fun people I've ever been around. And that just sums up the conference. I mean, she didn't know a soul in there, and she had a blast, and we all had so much fun. It's just such a great environment and community that it was. I was really, really happy to be part of that planning committee this year.
That's awesome. That's really great, and that's so wonderful that your wife said that. That's like heartwarming. So nice. All right, we are about to wind down, but before we do, I am just so curious about what is in store for next year. I've already started counting down the days to the conference. So, Karen, why don't you give us a little taste of what we can expect in 2016?
Well, I can tell you the leadership team, we have set aside 2 days to do a retreat to really go over a lot of the things that we need to improve or expand upon. One thing that I think we were trying to start to socialize this year was the notion of elements and moving away from the web conference at Penn State to elements. So it's elements, the web conference at Penn State, and then eventually we're going to transition to just elements. For us, that word represents everything about the web. Elements of good design, elements of good programming, elements of a good user experience, etc. So we're transitioning in that way, and I think we're going to keep on looking at making sure that we stay our fun selves, but that people understand we're a pretty serious conference in terms of content and experience.
Session for session, I always say the Penn State Conference is one of the best in the industry, and you don't have to be a Penn State employee to take a lot away from the really high class speakers that you guys draw. It's quite impressive. Any last words? If so, just jump right in. No, I've
next year we've already started the planning process, and I love this committee, and I love working with these people. It's my thing. It feels right.
Awesome. Anyone else? All right. Well, guys, this was so much fun. I'm like sad it's over. But everyone viewing, thank you so much for joining us today, and thanks as always to my employer Stoner for producing and sponsoring Higher Ed Live. Karen, Nikki, Matt, Audrey, Jen, this was great. Thank you for joining me today and hanging out. Don't forget to check out our past shows, everybody. It's available in the archives or in podcast form on iTunes. I'm Mallory Woods signing off. Have a great rest of your Friday and have a fun weekend. Bye now.